Well, let me ask you a little bit about a news headline that I was watching this morning, because this headline to me could have been written a year ago. It could have been written 19 months ago. And that was Sky News this morning reporting that Israel, quote unquote, deeply regrets bombing Gaza's Holy Family Church, so Gaza's only Catholic church, where they killed 3 people and wounded 9. What do you make of our colleagues' continued reporting of Israel's statements in response to these sorts of instances as regretful, a mistake, an error? There are quite a few errors, are there not, Ahmed?
Yeah, I mean, the pattern is clear for anyone who wants to see it, right? Anyone who's a critical thinker, anyone who's paying attention. And I guess my answer to you would be about the mainstream media or our colleagues who continue to sort of peddle and propagate and prioritize Israel's narrative, which has no credibility because they've lied time and time again. When they killed all those paramedics, when they buried them, before the video came out, they lied about it. Then when the video came out, it was suddenly a mistake. And my answer would be, I think the Pope himself, who issued a statement on X that I think can only be described as shameful and embarrassing for him, quite frankly, as the leader of the Catholic Church, to regret the loss of life. Much like how, Palestinians in the mainstream media tend to have died passively. And, the perpetrator, whether it's the New York Times or the Guardian or Sky News, is rarely, if ever, named. And the Pope chose not to name the perpetrator as well, as if the 84-year-old woman, who was killed, among those who were killed, I should say, because it wasn't just her, just died.
It just died.
She just died.
We don't really know how or why or who did it. It's just a thing that happened. I mean, there are so many things we could talk about when it comes to, I suppose, journalistic malpractice. But there's one I do want to talk to you about, because we've seen quite a few of our colleagues, even those who recognize the difficulties within the industry of challenging the Israeli narrative, dedicating their awards to fellow Palestinian journalists, kind of highlighting the courage of their colleagues in Gaza, albeit that, hundreds have died in essentially the line of duty, covering stories that we then reuse on our major networks, and which our networks obviously make money off. And on that note, I don't know if you saw a recent report by the Palestinian feminist media platform NAWA, the Now News Network, which revealed that the BBC had been commissioning journalists in Gaza, allegedly using their work, but not paying them or crediting them. Now, I'm sad to say that I'm aware that this is not exclusive to the BBC.
Sure.
There have been exploitative practices in journalism from day one. But I do want to ask you where this particular story fits into your understanding of how the industry operates. I mean, how exceptional is this story? Is it something that is like, yet again, we're seeing Palestinian journalists being, demeaned by the industry, by their colleagues? Or is this actually part of a wider pattern that's been happening to journalists in the Global South for quite some time?
I think both those things can be true, but I'd agree with you that this is a continuation of a policy, a strategy by mainstream media to put profit over people. And, the dehumanization of Palestinians over decades, I think, has reached such depths amidst this unfolding genocide. And it's not just Palestinians, as you say, in the Global South. I think there's always been exploitative practices. But, I mean, let's be honest, Myriam. In the eyes of the mainstream media, the political establishment, the media establishment, Palestinian lives are expendable, disposable, are not valued. So why would they pay journalists? I mean, again, I'm not trying to overstate it, but I think the level of dehumanization that has taken hold in the halls of power, whether in the media or the political realm, cannot be overstated. And that causes a willful blindness. You know, I had Gabor Mate on my podcast the other week, and the reason I mention this is because he said something unsolicited that I thought was really accurate. He said, when I brought up the New York Times and sort of some of their problematic coverage, to put it very lightly, when it comes to Israel and Palestine, he said, well, you'd have to be, I think it was willfully blind to be the bureau chief of the New York Times. And I just think it, you know, it really highlighted to me, it's like, I sometimes wonder, you know, because I've worked at all these places, and so have you, in many of these places, I should say, are these people not thinking critically? Are they unaware? Do they not see the truth? Or and are they failing at reporting it? Or and what I worry is the truth. Is it that they know the truth and they want to do whatever they can to either conceal it or obfuscate it?
So this bit I find easier to understand than the people on the sidelines around them who are not involved or implicated directly, but who presumably enter journalism like most of us do with a quest for truth, a desire to reveal, you know, dark practices, hold power to account, you know, etc. Those are the people, frankly, that confuse me. Because if I'm looking around my newsroom and I'm observing, which I think wouldn't be particularly hard at this point, that all of my colleagues seem to be taking, you know, press releases from the IDF as gospel. I don't know. I feel like maybe I might want to raise my hand. I may want to, you know, I don't know, stick my neck out for this one. It seems like a pretty important one. Tens of thousands of kids and, you know, millions of people's lives on the line. I don't know. Just they're the ones that confuse me, because I understand that there are ideologically motivated people within this industry. We meet them all the time. Unfortunately, there are people in our industry who think it's completely okay to refer to, you know, the West Bank as Judea and Samaria. I just listened to a news report this morning on American TV where the correspondent uses the term Judea and Samaria. I'm sorry, what? Are we now using the Bible as a reference for how we discuss news?
Well, I think what you're describing is what we were talking about before we started recording, which is, you know, even today, with the bombing of the Catholic Church, with all the various atrocities. I mean, there are crimes against humanity being committed on a daily basis dozens of times. And that alone makes it hard to report, right? Just the sheer pace of and the momentum with which they're committing these crimes. But when these crimes occur, the media says, Israel says it was a mistake. Israel, and they advance these lies. They advance the gaslighting narrative of Israel, the propaganda playbook. And in doing so, you know, when you say Israel says, a simple question. Israel is committing mass murder. That is an objective fact. Whether they have a right to do it because self-defense, I mean, that's a whole nother issue that I don't want to get into. But that alone should make you wonder why the media chooses to prioritize that narrative when they start saying Israel says, rather than say Israel killed, Israel, you know, the absence of them saying Israel killed and then the frequency with which they use Israel's defense as a lead in a story, I think sadly tells you all you need to know.
And it's disturbing to me because without clarity around how it is that this happens in newsrooms all around the world, I fear that it actually feeds into conspiracy theories around, you know, control and, you know, who's running what and actually really murky stuff where it's like, if you work in that newsroom, surely you know who has formally told you, I'm sorry, you're going to have to correct that headline. Who has sent you the memo that says, when we report this, we refer to the IDF's statements? Like, name and shame. Isn't that the job?
It is, but Myriam, the simple answer is it's self-preservation. It's the fact that, and I hate to try to like boil it down to make it so reductive, but, you know, the same way that I described the media at large, mainstream media, putting profit over people in a way, these people who might know better but will remain silent. Look, self-censorship is something I even had to engage with early on in my career when I was working at the New York Times, when I was working at some of these institutions. Looking back, it's always 2020. It wasn't even intentional sometimes.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't last at a lot of these places and I ended up quitting and moving on to the next place and then going back to a place like Al Jazeera is specific to my truth, which is that I'm Palestinian. And it was hard to continue to work for me at a place that was so clearly advancing a narrative and concealing a narrative that continued to cause so much destruction to Palestine. But yeah, these individuals, you want a promotion, you want to keep your job, you want to get ahead, you got to play the game.